Hey, I'm back. This time I'm back with two more chapters of The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers. Chapter 6 and 7, while I'll be talking about Chapter 8 in a more extensive way. That is why I will dedicate a whole video to it in another session. Okay, let's start with Chapter 6. Chapter 6, The Cadavers Who Joined the Army, the Sticky Ethics of Bullets and Bombs. This chapter tells a somewhat different story. The dead are used to show us how to stop death. Ironically, military research has been using bodies in ballistic studies and testing newly manufactured guns and rifles with the aim to find out how to incapacitate the enemy without killing them. A research that has been going on since American Indian Wars and continued through World War II, World War One, World War II, and then the other wars that came after. Lagarde, a surgeon in the US military during those wars that happened in the 19th century, also was a field combatant and led a war against the Sioux native tribes, wrote about gunshot injuries. He tested a new type of rifle on dead civilians to understand the mechanism of wounding by gunshot, with the aim to find a way to incapacitate rather than kill. The experiment was criticized by others who thought that shooting the dead isn't helpful for this purpose. So animals were used in later experiments by others, although using the human cadavers continued to be used in even Europe, in places such as Germany, France, surprisingly Switzerland, and others who enlisted their dead for this purpose. Shooting animals raised a few questions about why some dropped on the spot while others continued running even after many shots. Humans often collapse when gunshot. There were, however, situations where enemy soldiers continued to advance and shoot in the face of shooting guns. Two theories were offered. One is that it is a psychological thing, such as in the case of the soldier described by Lagarde in World War I against Philippines, or the detective who got a fatal shot and who did not drop until he killed his assailants. If the nervous system is not hit and the injured does not fall, it must be psychological. That's what we learned with Mary Roach in this book from experts, or quoted experts. The Moro tribesman, the one from Philippines, who continued to advance about 95 yards in the face of open fire before he drops down. That man, for example, was not able to anticipate how a rifle hit, so even when he shot, he did not fall. As for the detective, it must have been also a psychological thing, pride, for example. Animals do not collapse instantly because they are not aware of the effect of gunshot, just like the tribesman from Moro. The Moro tribesman. To explain the sudden collapse, neurology studies posited that the RAS, the reticulum activating system, is responsible after it receives a massive sensory overload from pain receptors and then sends signals that weaken the muscles, and then the victim falls. Other experiments, such as the ones run in Tennessee, explored the effect of new type of bullets on parts of human cadavers embedded in gelatin. Those bullets are the type that are used in SWAT activities or police operations, with the effect to minimize collateral damages by lodging bullets that break down upon impact, incapacitating the target without passing through the body and hitting others. Human cadavers have also helped in developing body armors for the military. Body armors, protective gear that help protect without weighing too much on the soldier or the police officers. Wild cadavers have been also enlisted for the sake to test explosives or footwear that can alleviate the effect of shrapnel or blast from shock waves or stepping into minefields. The latter experiments raised a few ethical issues, but the experimenting military bodies opted to numb their feelings about the topic and also not to inform families. The rationale was the humanitarian benefit outweighs the breach of dignity, as has been quoted by the author from interviews with military and medical researchers that oversee those operations. Points to discuss in this chapter. Is it okay to use cadavers in military experiment to understand the effect of wounding by gunshots or the effect of explosions and shock waves on soldiers? Assuming that we are okay with those experiments or numbing any discomfort about the ethical aspects, how helpful can a dead body be of use to direct research toward stopping death? Now, please don't hesitate and post your comments. Chapter 7, this one is different, and the author, before we start this chapter, by the end of chapter 6, she said that she would be okay donating her body for scientific research, be it for any reason. She's dead and she donates her body, so whatever they do with it, they do with it. But she wouldn't do it for religious purposes. And that's what this chapter is telling us about these religious experiments. The Holy Cadaver, the Crucifixion Experiment. In this chapter, the author states that she would not, that's what I just talked about, that she would not mind leaving her cadaver. That's in chapter 6. By the end of chapter 6, she said so. She would not donate her, mind leaving her body to scientific research, and would not mind being cut to pieces, crushed or blown up, if that would help save lives. But she would not do it for to help religious indoctrination, leading us to this chapter I'm talking about. Dr. Pierre Barbet ran a research to authenticate the crucifixion and the Shroud of Turin. He concluded that Jesus Christ was nailed to the cross at the wrist, not the palm, and that the stains on the shroud confirm his theory, as one stain goes obliquely upward through the ulnar edge or the forearm, then the forearm, and then the other flows up as far as the elbow. This is because the nail, he said, nails were initially placed in spots between the carpals that's called distal space. And he said that an ignorant of anatomy would not know how to falsify the stains to make them look that way. He used dead bodies to verify his theory. He also concluded death could only have been caused by asphyxiation. A New Yorker medical examiner Frederick Zogibe refuted Barbett's theory and sided up with Church's version that the palm instead of the wrist was the site of the nailing, rejected both the theory of distorted space and the death by asphyxiation as utter nonsense. The author views research. The author who wrote the curious lives of human cadavers, views both research as mere religious propaganda. So I just glossed on this chapter and would rather skip to the discussion. I will not ask the validity of the research to authenticate the Shroud of Turin, but I would ask about, would know if you want to have your body used in such research. The author did not reveal any facts about the cadavers used in Barbett's research and where he got them, but revealed that Zogibe used live volunteers, who were strapped by leather to a cross to mimic the posture of crucifixion, and they did not show any signs of asphyxiation. And also they didn't move that much. And that's it. For the next chapter, as I said in the beginning, is a long one and also a very interesting one, and it has lots of painful or topics that you wouldn't know where to stand about, and that's what we are going to discuss in the next chapter. It's really ghastly, scary, and keeps you want to find answers. So the chapter is beating heart cadavers, live burials, and scientific search for the soul. So I hope I will see you next time with more questions, about and with your own feedback, and stay safe. Bye bye.